If you're a Gen Z, there's a good chance your entire youth has been tied to Spotify playlists. Am I right? When we drive, we turn on Spotify. When we study, we turn on Spotify. When we run, we turn on Spotify. Even when we're doing nothing at all, we still turn on Spotify. Especially at the end of each year, millions of people eagerly await a special ritual, Spotify Wrapped. At that point, music is no longer just something you listen to, it becomes part of your identity, part of your personal style. But something strange has been happening lately. Just as Spotify reached hundreds of millions of users, cemented its dominance in the streaming industry, and posted record profits, a quiet rebellion began to unfold. Users stopped renewing their subscriptions. Artists kept calling out the company by name. Internal stories started leaking. Across social media, a growing wave of boycotts began to spread. What happened to Spotify? In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the full story behind the neon green backdrop to answer one question. Is Spotify heading toward the brink of decline? The fastest way to understand what's happening at Spotify is to follow the money. Revenue tells you what a company is selling, but the way it makes money and where it chooses to invest that money reveals what it truly prioritizes. If you look at Spotify over the past few years, the picture is fairly clear. From a company that thrived on user growth, it has been gradually shifting toward optimizing financial efficiency. And this is where the comfort zone trap appears. Instead of opening up a new growth engine, the fastest way to improve financial reports is to extract more value from the existing customer base. It's like a coffee shop with a loyal crowd of regulars. Rather than improving the quality of its coffee beans or adding new menu items, the owner simply raises prices in stages, believing that customers will stay anyway. Spotify has done something similar with its premium individual plan in the United States. From $9.99 to $10.99 in July 2023, then up again to $11.99 in June 2024. However, this has unintentionally led listeners to ask, if I'm paying more, what am I getting in return? Because while subscription prices have gone up, some core issues have continued for many years. The clearest example is Shuffle. If you have used Spotify long enough, you know the feeling. You open a playlist with several hundred songs, hit Shuffle, and the app still keeps repeating the same familiar group of tracks. It is like a DJ with a massive music library who, night after night, only chooses the same handful of safest songs to play. This is not a new issue. On Reddit and Spotify's support forums, discussions about Shuffle have surfaced repeatedly for years. By March 2023, Spotify had even introduced Smart Shuffle for premium users. Yet the controversy over whether Shuffle mode is truly random had still not disappeared. In other words, users see a company that is willing to optimize its pricing strategy very quickly, yet remains slow to fix some of the most basic bugs. The issue becomes even more apparent when looking at the company's long-term product strategy. In February 2021, Spotify promised a higher tier offering designed to deliver an experience beyond premium, Spotify Hi-Fi. However, to this day, the feature has still not been rolled out broadly. Meanwhile, competitors such as Apple Music have been aggressively promoting lossless audio since 2021. This has led many users to ask, if the company can raise prices twice in 2 years, why has it continued to delay core upgrades that directly improve the listening experience? The concerns extend beyond the commercialization of music products. Spotify has also continued to face another serious challenge: fairness. Between 2023 and 2024, AI-generated audio content grew rapidly across the industry. Spotify moved quickly to tighten its policies, improve transparency regarding content origins, and address cases involving fake accounts or algorithm-based stream manipulation. At the same time, however, some independent artists reported being affected by systems designed to detect abnormal streaming activity. In some cases, music was removed or royalty payments were withheld before artists had a full opportunity to present their explanations or appeal the decisions. And that was also when the first cracks began to appear within Spotify itself. In business, when a company gradually becomes disconnected from its customers, it is often a sign that leadership is allowing commercial value to overshadow its core creative value. At Spotify, this became especially evident through statements and decisions that repeatedly led the artist community to question how the platform viewed the very industry on which it depended for survival. From an artist's perspective, that disconnect becomes easy to see. A song can take months to write, weeks to record, and years to build an audience around. Yet in the streaming model, the metrics measured first are play counts, listening time, and retention rates. This misalignment is precisely why Daniel Ek's remarks in an interview with Music Ally in July 2020 sparked such a strong backlash. He stated that the cost of creating content is close to zero, and argued that artists could no longer release music once every few years and still expect to succeed in the streaming era. These seemingly cold and detached comments inadvertently deepened the divide between the technology platform and the people who create the very products that allow that platform to exist. Not only has Spotify faced controversy over its exploitation of artists' intellectual labor, but it has also been accused of unfairly capitalizing on the intellectual contributions of its own employees. Spotify Wrapped began as Year in Music in 2015, was expanded into Wrapped in 2016, and quickly became one of the company's most successful marketing campaigns. At the end of each year, users voluntarily share their listening data, turning Spotify into a social media phenomenon without the company spending a single cent on advertising. Because Wrapped product carries such enormous brand value, questions about who originally came up with the idea resurfaced after a viral 2024 post by former intern Jewel Ham. In her LinkedIn post, she recalled that while working as a design intern at Spotify in 2014, she helped develop the early version of Year in Music, the foundation that later evolved into Wrapped. Instead of receiving recognition, however, all of her ideas were absorbed and ultimately became the company's property. When employees, artists, and users all begin questioning fairness at the same time, it is usually no longer just about a feature or a marketing campaign. It is often a sign that the company's internal culture is gradually becoming deeply toxic. But to understand why the controversies surrounding Spotify have left so many people disappointed, we need to go back to the time when the platform was once seen as a savior of the music industry. Think back to America in the late 2000s. This was a period when the music industry was almost torn in half. On one side was the old model, buying CDs, typically priced between $12 and $18, at retail chains such as Best Buy and Target. On the other side was the world of digital music piracy, where Napster had set the stage in 1999. LimeWire exploded in the early 2000s, and by October 2010, LimeWire had been forced by a U.S. federal court to shut down following a lawsuit brought by the RIAA. The problem was that lawsuits did not solve the root cause. The RIAA could win individual cases, but it could not defeat consumer behavior. When a legal product is both expensive and inconvenient, while a pirated version is only a few clicks away, the market will naturally choose the easier path. It is a classic lesson in business. If customers consistently find ways around the rules, it is not always because they want to break them. It may be because the legal option is not good enough. Spotify saw exactly that gap. Instead of asking how to stop people from listening to pirated music, they asked a different question. What if listening to music legally were even easier than listening to pirated music? It sounds like a simple idea, but in reality, it represented a major strategic shift for the entire industry. Spotify was founded in Stockholm in 2006, launched to the public in Europe in October 2008, and officially entered the US market on July 14, 2011, after years of licensing negotiations with the major record labels. Their model struck exactly the right psychological chord with users. For a premium fee of $9.99 per month in the United States, listeners could instantly access millions of songs. There was no need to download files, worry about viruses, or hunt for links on forums cluttered with ads and pop-ups. All they had to do was type in a song title and press play. The market responded immediately. Just a few months after launching in the United States, Spotify announced that it had reached 10 million global users in September 2011, including approximately 2.5 million paying subscribers. From there, growth continued to accelerate. By 2016, the company had surpassed 100 million monthly active users. By 2018, that figure had risen to more than 170 million before Spotify went public on the New York Stock Exchange in April 2018. Spotify changed the way an entire generation accessed music. That is why Spotify became so powerful. It was no longer just an app. It had become a habit, a part of consumers' daily rhythm of life. But then something very noteworthy happened. Spotify continued to grow. According to its fourth quarter 2023 report, the company had 602 million monthly active users and 236 million paid subscribers. From the outside, that looked like a positive sign. But in business, the most frightening thing is when the rules of the game change. Imagine that you own the largest DVD rental chain in the United States in 2005. Your stores are busy, revenue is steady, and your brand is strong. Then high-speed internet becomes widespread. Netflix shifts from mailing discs to streaming, and the entire market transitions to a different operating model. At that point, the issue is no longer whether you have been running your stores well. The core issue is that the old business model has begun to become obsolete. Spotify also once succeeded thanks to a simple formula, making music listening easier, faster, and more convenient. But by the early 2020s, that advantage was no longer exclusive. Apple Music, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music had all achieved the same thing. Apple Music launched in 2015. Amazon Music benefited from the Prime ecosystem, while YouTube Music leveraged YouTube's massive content library. The real turning point came in 2021. On February 22nd, 2021, Spotify held its Stream On event and announced Hi-Fi, promising lossless audio quality. But just a few months later, on June 7th, 2021, Apple Music introduced lossless audio and spatial audio at no additional subscription cost. In May 2021, Amazon Music HD was included in the unlimited plan without any extra charge. The competitive landscape became more public and intense than ever before. The competition was not limited to listeners. It also extended to one of the most important stakeholders, artists. In March 2020, Bandcamp launched Bandcamp Fridays, temporarily waiving the platform's revenue share on the first Friday of each month so that the money would go directly to artists. This event was like a direct blow to Spotify because its model is based on a pro rata system. Simply put, even if you listen to an indie artist a lot, while other people on the platform are listening to Taylor Swift or Drake, part of the money from your subscription fee still gets diluted. As a result, the artist you love does not receive the full benefit of your streams. Sounds pretty unfair, doesn't it? In March 2021, Spotify launched the Loud and Clear website to explain how royalties are calculated. According to the Loud and Clear report released in early 2021, 2024. Spotify stated that it paid approximately $9 billion to rights holders in 2023, and more than 1,500 artists earned over $1 million from the platform. But those figures still do not answer the core question. How much do most artists actually earn? That is why the debate over fairness continues to grow. According to widely cited industry estimates, Spotify's average payout is typically around $0.003 to $0.005 per stream, and the actual amount also depends on the listener's country, subscription type, and the artist's agreement with their record label. At that rate, an independent artist would need hundreds of thousands of streams every month just to make a living from streaming. It is not impossible, but it is far from easy. And because Spotify only counts a stream after roughly 30 seconds of listening, many artists have started optimizing their songs by getting to the hook more quickly, cutting intros, and removing instrumental sections. In doing so, the industry has unintentionally stripped away some of the true artistic value of music, turning it into a hollow, instant consumption product. It seemed as though the story had come to an end, but Spotify soon found itself confronting another technological wave. From 2023 to 2024, many listeners began questioning playlists such as Deep Focus, Peaceful Piano, and Sleep. Although these playlists consistently ranked among the platform's top playlists, they often had no clearly identified artists behind them, and in some cases, the artist profiles were completely blank. When asked about the issue, Spotify denied creating fake artists of its own, but the controversy refused to die down. That pressure intensified as AI exploded into the mainstream. In April 2023, the song Heart on My Sleeve, which used AI to imitate the voices of Drake and The Weeknd, spread across the internet before eventually being taken down. And the biggest controversy of all came from a place few people expected: defense. In June 2021, Daniel Ek's investment firm Prima Materia led a €100 million Series A funding round for Helsing, a German AI defense startup. By June 2024, Prima Materia had also participated in Helsing's €450 million funding round, bringing the company's valuation to approximately €5 billion. To Ek, it was a bet on European security, but to many artists and fans, it shattered Spotify's image as a neutral cultural platform whose sole purpose was to connect people through music. The backlash did not stop on social media. In June 2024, Deerhoof announced that it would remove its music from Spotify. By July 2024, Massive Attack had done the same. These moves did not cause Spotify to collapse overnight, but they revealed another risk, one potentially far more dangerous. The brand was increasingly becoming associated with controversies that extended far beyond music, and with each new dispute, another piece of public trust was eroded. And perhaps this is the biggest lesson from Spotify's story. Since its direct listing on the NYSE on April 3, 2018, Spotify has consistently had to prove that user growth can be converted into profitability. The company scored major wins through its algorithms, particularly after launching Discover Weekly in July 2015, a feature that turned music discovery into a personalized experience on a global scale. By the fourth quarter of 2023, Spotify had 602 million monthly active users and 236 million paid subscribers. But at the same time, the company still had to cut 6% of its workforce in January 2023 and another 17% in December 2023, after Daniel Ek admitted that Spotify had overinvested during a period of rapid growth. The lesson here is clear. The very thing that once helped you lead the market can also become a constraint if every decision revolves solely around data, listening time, and short-term efficiency. The second lesson is even clearer. Many businesses think they are simply selling a product, but the strongest companies understand that they are building an entire ecosystem. For Spotify, that ecosystem does not consist only of listeners. It also includes artists, producers, record labels, advertisers, and even the people deciding whether to continue placing their trust in the platform. This relationship has been strained for a long time. Taylor Swift removed her entire catalog from Spotify in November 2014 and did not return until June 2017. Then, in June 2024, when Daniel Ek's Prima Materia led a €450 million funding round for Helsing, a European defense AI company, the reaction from a segment of artists once again highlighted something very familiar. The gap between a brand's image and its leadership's choices can quickly turn into a crisis of trust. At the same time, controversies surrounding mood playlists, such as Focus, Chill, and Sleep, along with allegations involving ghost artists, continued to raise questions about the transparency of Spotify's ecosystem. When one group within an ecosystem feels that it is no longer being heard, the problem usually does not erupt immediately. It accumulates over time, until eventually no algorithm can fix it anymore. The final lesson is an old one, but it remains true. You have to face reality head-on. Markets change, technology changes, customer expectations change as well. And sometimes, arrogance is more dangerous than competition itself. It causes warning signs to become increasingly obvious, while the people on the inside find it harder and harder to see them. That is why many empires do not collapse, because their competitors are stronger. They weaken because they no longer see the world the way their customers do. A few years from now, Spotify may still be one of the largest music platforms in the world. It may adapt successfully, or it may enter an entirely different phase. No one knows for sure. But Spotify's story still leaves us with a thought-provoking question. When you pay for a platform every month, what are you really buying? Convenience? Technology? Or are you supporting the way value is distributed across an entire creative ecosystem? If you would like me to analyze which other brands are facing a turning point similar to Spotify's, leave the name of that brand in the comments section. I will choose the names mentioned most often for the next video. Bye, guys.